Hello and welcome to the ILTV Podcast. I'm Maayan Hoffman, Executive Editor of ILTV, and I'm so happy to have back our viewers and our listeners. Now I have with me today a very interesting guest, an author of a book called Israel Valley. His name is Edouard Cukierman. He is a veteran venture capitalist and the founder of Catalyst Investments. Edouard, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for welcoming me.
Of course. Now, your book, Israel Valley, just came out at a very pivotal moment in English, just in the last few months, almost 2 years into the war that started on October 7th. Yeah. Why did you feel that this was the right time to publish it in English?
I mean, the book was published initially in French and published in Chinese and other languages, but due to the war, a lot of things have happened in the last 2 years, especially in the, the war had an impact on the economy. It had an impact also on many civilians that have been involved in the war, directly or indirectly. The high-tech companies have been affected, and also the image of Israel has been affected. We saw also during that war how important the technology is, but also what are the limitations of technology during October 7th. So we felt that it's a good timing to refresh the book completely, re-edit it. We had done that with the two co-writers, Ron Valman, who is American, who joined us to really refresh the book, and also Professor Daniel Roach that has been writing with me for many years. And we've done a common work to really show a new angle to what's going on in the high-tech industry today.
And you talk about Israeli innovation as what you called a technology shield. Explain to me that metaphor.
The technology shield really has been seen very clearly during this war with the Iron Dome system. We saw that without the Iron Dome, we probably would have not faced the threat from Iran, from the Hezbollah, and even not from the Hamas. And this impact of the idea of the Iron Dome was really, I think, just an illustration of Israeli technology capabilities. We see that there are also, in this field of the Iron Dome, new disruptive technologies like the Iron Beam that will also change the way Israel will defend itself in the future. But the technology applied to the military application is not the only issue. Obviously, the high-tech industry had an impact on the Israeli economy. So it's another kind of shield, because I think that without the high-tech industry, the Israeli economy would be very weak. It has been the growth engine of the economy for many, many decades.
It's more than 50% of the GDP, or close to 50%?
It has probably, the high-tech company has a smaller impact, but the indirect impact is huge. You have also business tourism. You have a lot of real estate projects that are related to the success of the high-tech technology and the entrepreneur that hired so many people in the industry. So it has an impact on almost every aspect of the industry. Today, the vast majority of the export is high-tech product, and the rest is technology related to agro-tech or military technology, which are considered low-tech. But I would say that almost 100% of the export of Israel today is technology related. So that's another aspect, the economy, but obviously it helped also integrating immigration for many, many decades. We had 1 million immigrants that came from the former Soviet Union. Obviously the fact that 37% came with an engineering degree enabled to integrate them into the high-tech industry, but also to boost the high-tech industry. I think that without this population, we would not have the type of growth we had in the high-tech industry in the year 2000 and 2010. So that's obviously had a major impact, and we see that in so many aspects. So we address all those aspects that also in terms of academy, the universities, a big portion of the financing of the university is the licensing of the company developed at the university and the link between the high-tech industry and those universities. So we see that in so many aspects that we think that we had to give a different angle. We came also with Professor Daniel Roach with a more academic angle, Ron with an American angle, and I came with more venture capital experience and investment banking experience.
Of course, and you're also from France. So, tell me a little bit about that French integration. Has that also played a role in the high-tech industry? Where the French community fit into all of this?
The French community is today I would say the immigration from France is more important than ever. Also because of the crisis going on in France with anti-Semitism. My father was for many years the head of the Jewish community in France, and he had been facing this challenge of anti-Semitism in France that has been growing in the last years. But the French immigration has an impact, but not a major impact. Obviously, the funding of the high-tech companies came mostly from the U.S. Right. We have been seeing the direct funding and direct investment by corporation and by investors into the high-tech company, and indirect through the venture capital industry. Mm-hmm. When I started my first venture fund in 1993, we were 3 venture funds. Now we are 400 venture funds.
Wow.
So the industry has grown a lot, and most of the funding came from the US. So I would say that the impact from France was, in that sense, more limited.
Interesting. Now, you mentioned the Iron Beam as the next, generation of the Iron Dome. So tell me a little bit about that. And also, I understand that your investment company has been somewhat involved in the development of this great technology.
I mean, we have followed a company called Sivan, which has developed the laser technology, which was the key technology to deploy the Iron Beam. Mm-hmm. And this technology has been, for 18 years, the company, when they started speaking about it, looked like Star Wars. But
right.
Now they have managed to integrate that into the Iron Dome system, and it was really very efficient during the conflict, especially against drones, but also against missiles. So we think that the main difference of the Iron Beam is that instead of firing a missile that cost $100,000 to stop a rocket or to stop a drone that costs tens of dollars, which is, it doesn't make sense in terms of the economic.
The cost of lives, of course.
But the economic impact is very heavy on Israel. So if you do the same job, even better, using a laser technology, which is really the cost of energy, it costs $2 to $5 every time you use it. And it's done in real time at the speed of light. So that's much more efficient, and that's, I think, the solution for the future for many of the threats that are coming from our neighboring countries.
Unless the Trump peace plan goes through and we no longer have rockets running into Israel, right? But let's hold our breath,
inshallah,
right?
As we say in the
exactly,
region. Yeah.
Exactly. So I want to ask you about Israel's innovation system in comparison to, let's say, the American one in Silicon Valley. How can you compare and contrast those two innovation systems?
So when we describe in the book the key factors, we identify 7 factors, and some of them are similar, but some of them are really different. Obviously, the impact of the military experience that many of the young soldiers have at a very young age, where they use state-of-the-art technology tools and they have many responsibility at a very young age, is something that is very special. Also, the application of this military technology applied to civilian application, I think it's also something that is very unique. For example, we are the only venture fund that invested in Mobileye. Mobileye is a company that was eventually sold to Intel for $15.3 billion. So this is technology enabled to avoid car collision. And when we invested, there were a lot of competitors that were able to identify the red light, the white line, but they were not able to identify the pedestrian. So at Mobileye, you had a lot of engineers coming, most of them from 8200, that were able to divert a missile in real time when suddenly there is, for example, a person coming in and they need to neutralize a missile at the speed of a missile. So if you're able to do that, you're obviously able to do it at the speed of a car. So in order to avoid car collision, Mobileye came with this solution. I think there is also, in my view, it's the first AI technology company that made a major exit, and it's also the first auto tech company in Israel that made an exit. So I think for us it was an amazing adventure, but it's just an illustration on how military technology can sometimes be used to apply it for the benefit of the civilian.
Do you think that the military is the major driver of our innovation, just the fact that we have such a difficult security situation?
It's not that the venture industry invests much more funding than what even the army is investing. I mean, there are maybe some specific field where the army is still investing a lot of money. But the thing is that the people coming from the army at a very young age gain so much experience, and that they are Also, there is a word in Hebrew, tachles, they have to develop in a real short period of time. They have responsibility over soldiers, so they gain the type of experience that in other society you won't gain until you have a much more advanced age. So I think that's one element. Obviously, the fact that we're a melting pot with people coming from all over the world is very special, even though in California you have a lot of immigrants. Mm-hmm. But the Jewish culture is very special. For example, here we are, this issue of resilience. You see that today. It has also an impact on the attitude of the entrepreneurs. There is also the Jewish tradition where the concept of tikkun olam, how to improve the world. When we invest in biotech company or medtech company, the people we invest in, they don't come to us and say, we want to become a unicorn. They typically say, we have developed a technology that can do a major change for people suffering from Alzheimer or from cancer. Or
they
from
want to save the world.
So they want to improve the life of the people. And that's what brings them to create their own company. So I think it's very special in the Jewish culture. Also the concept of Passover when people want freedom. And I think that's also part of the startup nation culture. So there is element which is linked to the Jewish identity, which I believe as differentiate ourselves to maybe different high-tech ecosystems.
Which is so beautiful. I mean, now you yourself have invested billions and done many cross-border deals, but I'm wondering, after October 7th, has this shifted? Are you seeing that people are less inclined to want to invest in Israel?
Yes, unfortunately, it is the case. We see that even today in the numbers. I've been seeing the crisis of 2000, 2008, where we had a drop in terms of investment in the venture industry and investing in high-tech companies. But it was for a short period of time. Now we are 2 years afterwards and we see the impact. There is the impact through the venture funds. For example, the amount raised by the venture funds in these last 12 months is about 80% less than the year 2021. So obviously 2021 was a peak, but it has a long-term impact because today we still enjoy some of the funding available from the fund that were raised in 2021 because we deployed the money over 4 or 5 years. Right. Now, what will happen in the coming 2 or 3 years? Also, there will be, it will be challenging, not only this year, but probably next year for the investors to invest in Israeli funds because also there is a certain image, there is uncertainty. Hopefully an agreement will be reached, but still investors don't like uncertainty. So we will face, I believe, a crisis for a longer period of time. And by the way, this is why we created a platform called Catalyst Investors Club, which enable private investors from all over the world to invest directly in companies that were backed by venture funds. So the idea is to enable a private investor that is an accredited investor that understands the risk to cherry pick the companies he like. We show currently above 300 videos. We created this video, most of them using AI capabilities, and we show them different opportunity in different sectors. And they can cherry pick the one that they like and co-invest together with leading funds. This is helping funds to get more funding to support their portfolio companies.
But you do mention in the book something that you call cracks in the shield. I mean, what is a crack in the shield and what are the cracks that concern you the most?
So one crack is related to the point I just made regarding the fact that there is less funding. The importance of the venture and the high-tech industry is so in the economy is such that we cannot afford to support the economy without this high-tech industry continuing to without seeing us developing this industry over time. And this funding, when it's blocked, what will be the impact? That's a big challenge. The other challenge we see, if we speak about cracks, for example, the Muslim community has been successfully integrated in the ecosystem, mostly in the medical field. But the poorest population today in Israel is the Hasidic community, is the Orthodox community. And it's up to now, it has been very hard to integrate them into the high-tech ecosystem. We invest in a fund that is dedicated to support the Hasidic entrepreneurship, but it's very limited. And they need really to have a basic understanding on the mathematics, computer science, and start learning that in order to contribute. They have a lot of skills. They can do it. But right now, the leaders of the rabbinic community, the Orthodox community, is very reluctant to enable this community to integrate the Israeli high-tech ecosystem.
Do you think, piggybacking on that in terms of cracks, that the reliance on the defense industry to be able to develop these technologies is hindering our development in other areas, like let's call it climate tech, for example, or other areas? And as the world shifts and potentially, God willing, again, we'll say peace one day, we won't need as much defense tech. Will we not be working in the fields that become most important to the world?
I think the climate tech is challenged not because of what's going on in Israel, but in general with the speech of Trump in the UN. I think he made his point very clear. So it's hard for people to invest in long-term, renewable, for example, energy infrastructure, while the government doesn't support that. That's a big issue. I think that regarding Israel, you can see in the latest statistic that the bulk of the funding has been done in cybersecurity, in defense tech, and in AI.
Right.
And the other sector have been affected. But, because we've been investing for 32 years, we see there is always, more fashionable technology. We've seen that it's coming back and forth. So right now, those are the three technology that the investors are coming in. That's where you see probably the most, the highest number of exit. You saw with Wiz. That was sold for, I think, $32 billion. So the cyber is very appealing. And the defense, obviously, the increase of the allocation of the European nation to invest more in defense has also an impact. The other concern that I have is also the fact that some countries, especially in Europe, are reluctant today to buy defense tech technology from Israel. And they may be also reluctant to buy European Israeli technology in other sectors. So that's also something we have to understand. So the consequences of the war on the long term. And that's something that we don't know how much time it will take to come back to what we had before the war.
And thinking of long-term consequences of the war, one of the things that I've been reading a lot about is this mental health technology or trauma tech. The idea that we're going to have maybe 3 million Israelis that are suffering from some kind of symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety, depression. So we're going to need to be able to serve those people and don't have the capability in terms of the manpower to do so. And so technologies are popping up, which actually could be very relevant in Ukraine, in the United States, where there's a lot of this as well. Do you think that that's going to be a new field for Israel?
Fortunately, we have a lot of experience in, these people that are wounded and hurt, not only psychologically but physically by the war. So there are some companies that did well in developing medical device for people that was wounded during the war. And it's more problematic, I believe, when we speak about people that are suffering from trauma, because the business model depends very much on the government. The government have very little resources right now, and they don't put enough resources to face this challenge. So, medical device and biotech companies managed to raise funding because there is a huge international potential, and the bulk of the market is obviously not in Israel.
Right.
But I think that it's in general more difficult right now to raise money for medical technology, for healthcare. We're doing a lot of effort. Our investment bank, we have 12 people raising money for many biotech and medtech companies, but the period is more challenging for that industry.
It's interesting. And you mentioned the Haredim or the ultra-Orthodox. I mean, obviously there were also issues in the country with judicial reform, other social cohesion issues that have gone on in Israel. When the world looks at those as well, does that have deterrence the same way, the October 7th ongoing war has had on Israel?
I didn't understand.
The social cohesion issues, when they are exported to the world, you watched before the war started, all of these judicial reform protests, or you see some of these other challenges we're facing internally that then export themselves sort of in the news to the world. Do those also hinder investments?
Yeah, it was before October 7th.
Right, of course.
Obviously. Today, there is more cohesion and more, the people are I see people from different political views that are serving in the army. We are really in the survival mode. So the attitude is very different, and I don't think that it doesn't matter from which political party you are. I think that almost all the Israeli population was supportive of what happened, what are the steps that were taken regarding Iran, regarding the Hezbollah. And if at the end of the day we have the release of the hostages in Gaza, I think that there is much more cohesion than any time before. So I think this problem was a big issue before October 7. It's less of an issue today.
Fascinating. And, in terms of the international image of Israel, do you think that the technology, the things you're talking about, for example, in your book, the incredible innovation could be part of our Hasbara? And if so, how could we more effectively use the technology rather than looking for the investments, but to improve Israel's image?
Yeah. It's a good point. I think the high-tech is a message that is of interest for any population in the world. When you disrupt an industry, you come with a solution that is to help people that are facing cancer or diabetes. We invest in a company, CureLife, focusing on fighting people that have diabetes problem. We are in a situation where we address that to everyone. I was spokesperson of the army for many years. I was also quite a lot in the news in Europe, speaking about the situation. It's always challenging when we speak about the military action. And when you speak about the high-tech industry, my first fund went public at the time in Europe, and I was presenting in 1997 already the high-tech industry to the European investor community. They were more intrigued, more interested to learn about it. The political issue is put aside, and I think it's a very good way to present Israel.
Yeah, so hopefully, through the book and through other ways, we'll be able to do it more. Now, you've been in the space for 35 years already. And
32, yeah.
32, almost 35 years, okay? So, modest. Tell me, do you think the DNA, though, of the Israeli entrepreneur has changed over those 30 years, from what we were when the kind of concept of the startup nation and the young entrepreneur was to where we are today?
It has changed a lot. First, one of the challenges the entrepreneur have today is that in order for an Israeli entrepreneur to do an exit, he needs to reach a critical size of $100 or $200 million sales per year. Mm-hmm. In the past, you could go public at a $100 million valuation a few years after you created the company. And that's why we call it the startup nation, because we're good at creating startups. Today, if you want to be successful, you need to create an international operation, to have critical size, have sales all over the world. So you need different skill set than what you needed many years ago. That's also why today the statistics shows that from the day you created your company till the exit, for exit above $200 million, you have to wait for 18 years. So it's more challenging. It's a long time. And that's also why we shifted our investment strategy at Catalyst from early stage to investment in more mature companies and pre-IPO companies, because we know we cannot afford to wait 18 years to make an exit. So that's why the profile of the company is evolving, and the profile of the entrepreneurs that support the company until the exit is different. But I think that one thing that also impacted is a war. We have to today, because it's harder to raise money, we have to show very fast that the business model of those startups, it's a profitable business model, and it's not only R&D center, and people want to see results, and they are very cautious about their investments today. The valuation is more linked to how fast a company can be profitable than just having, as we used to have, a company that was ready to go for a long way but burning a lot of cash. So a lot of elements have changed that impact the way the founders and the managers have to operate.
So are there different staff members as well? Like they have to recruit not just engineers, I'm assuming then, but businessmen, marketers?
Exactly. One other aspect in the war is that many of the companies decide to establish their headquarters overseas. You see that before the war, only 25% of the Israeli startups were established overseas. Today we're at 45%.
Oh, wow. Just in the last 2 years, it's grown that much.
So it's a big change. And it's obviously easier to recruit people that have marketing experience. They know how to go to the market when they are overseas, rather than hiring them in Israel or bringing talents from overseas to Israel. So we see this trend, unfortunately, that many of the Israeli entrepreneurs decide to establish their operation first overseas and not necessarily in Israel anymore.
And I guess that would be why we see in the Israel Innovation Authority the reports that we're seeing less hiring going on in the high-tech sector in Israel.
Yes.
I'm assuming it
and that's even before you see the impact of the real impact of the war and the impact of AI within many companies that will not need so many engineers, software engineers, as they needed to have before.
Oh, wow. So now in the book, do you offer some of these tips to the more international companies? Like, in other words, this is about Israel, but are any of the lessons applicable for companies that are not Israeli?
Yes, I think our experience, for example, in venture capital is obviously very unique, because Israel is a small country, but it's a huge ecosystem in the high-tech industry. For example, there are more unicorns in Israel, about 100, than the number of unicorns all over the EU put together.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So Israel has a great experience. When we published a book in Italy, at the time, there were about $10 billion invested in the high-tech industry the same year, while there was 300 million euro invested in the Italian market. So the allocation, the expertise, there is field of expertise where Israel has a unique positioning, especially in relation to cyber and biotech, and where, for example, 7 of the leading drugs in the world were developed at the Weizmann Institute. So Israel is appreciated, and we have gained a lot of experience. Obviously, the American is the first market, the leading market, but for example, we see a lot of interest from European companies, of even Asian companies. We have raised quite a lot of money from Asia in the past, and we think that this is something that will continue over time.
So we're going to run out of time, and I just want to ask you one final question. You know, this podcast is about 30 minutes long. People will remember some things, other things they'll forget. But if you had to give one final headline to describe the book, the takeaway that you really want people to have about Israel Valley and the Israeli ecosystem, what would it be?
I think Israel has developed so many great technologies in so many fields over the time. Even though it's a challenging period, it's also a period of opportunity. I think it was Ross Perot that said, when there is a crisis, there is an opportunity. So it's a good opportunity for international investors, especially investors from the US, to look at opportunities today in Israel. The value of those companies are cheaper. We offer them with this Catalyst Investors Club platform the opportunity to cherry pick the company they want to back. So I think that when there is a crisis like that, it's also the time to look at opportunity in that market.
So from crisis comes opportunity. Well, Edouard, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.